Hey everybody, it's Denise Siegel, and it's been a while since I made one of these videos about what's coming astrologically. Um, if you've been following my Substack, I've been mostly focused on spiritual messages to help people with this really difficult period of time. But we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming and the turning points and what I think that means here now. I've been holding off on making this because getting too far ahead of the game doesn't work out well. People can't hear it, they don't understand it, and they turn it off. So while I've seen this for quite a while now, I am now sharing it with you and what I think it means. Um, so let's go into it, right? Also, I keep forgetting to do this, but if you want to book a reading or you want to come to my classes, or you want to subscribe to my Substack, if you're not, this will be on Substack as well. All you have to do is go into the More button on YouTube, and all that information will be there. So you can just click on stuff. If you want to book a reading on my Substack, I have a button to book a reading. You just click that button, or you can even look at my art, some of the stuff that I publish on Substack, the paintings and stuff. But the other thing is, if you don't remember any of that or you can't access that, all you have to do is Google Denise Siegel booking. It will come right up. It comes up as like the first thing. So just spell my name right and the word booking, and it'll take you right to my booking site. Okay. So if you haven't subscribed, again, please subscribe to my channel and please subscribe to my Substack, because I'm doing a lot more stuff on Substack now than I am on YouTube. So if you miss hearing what I have to say, please subscribe to Substack. It's a lot more information, a lot deeper information. And if you want to know what's coming and how to deal with it, that's the place really to go. This is kind of overview, and it's going to give you hints, but the deeper, more specific stuff is going to really be in my Substack. So go ahead and please subscribe. You can subscribe for free. There's usually something there's stuff that comes out twice a week. There's a divination where I do a fortune where you can just get advice. So it's like a random divination generator, kind of like when you use the cards. So I switch the numbers around, and you let a number float into your head. You look at the number, and then you get an answer to your question. And then there's another one that's a yes, no kind of divination where same thing, trying to figure out whether you should do something or not. You can use that divination generator and let a number come into your head and then find that. They're all randomized, so it's different every week and it's free for everyone. And I often put out articles on my Substack for free. And then some things that get published early for subscribers get published a couple months later for free people. It's not expensive either. It's, I think it's $8 a month or something to subscribe to the Substack to get all the content. So it's your call, but there is a free side to it. So if you can't afford to pay $8, then which works out to be like $2 a week. If you can't afford it, I totally get it. Just go to the free side and watch my YouTube stuff and I do put the videos on Substack as well. So and I sometimes will do videos that are just really kind of on Substack and not on YouTube. I don't do that as much but I have, and I will probably do more of that coming up. So please subscribe to my Substack. It's Astrologer's Guide to Life on Earth, or you can just find me as Denise Siegel on Substack as well. All right, so let's get into this because this is quite something. And as I've been telling you guys, and I've implied for a long time now, I have not been totally, you can't, there's only so much people can handle. And I've learned from my early days. I was just talking to a friend of mine who I totally forgot this. I don't often remember a lot of this stuff, but when I was younger, I would just go and just say things to people. And one example from my friend telling me this the other day, my friend D, who lives in Los Angeles, we went on a trip to North Carolina. We were checking it out, and I guess we went to some bar or something to see a band. And I guess as we walked in, I went to this guy who I saw sitting there, and I went, "It's okay, don't worry about it. Things will get better." And then she heard that much, like, I said something about him breaking up with his girlfriend or something, and then I guess she didn't hear this part. Whatever it was I said to him, he got scared and he ran out of the bar. Then the next day, I guess we went back there, and uh he was there and he saw us and he ran out of the bar again. So I don't know what I said. And I've had that experience a lot as a young person because I didn't have a filter. I would just say stuff and scare people. So I have learned now that I'm almost 60, I'll be 60 in a couple of years. I know how to parse things out a lot better. And I'm just going to say here, I've seen this coming for a long time. And now that we're closer to it, I'm going to reveal some of this stuff, and I'm going to show you astrologically. I've had visions of some very disturbing things, which I've written about on Substack. And I started writing some of that stuff back in the spring. Again, some of this stuff has been withheld until recently, until I felt like people could kind of bite on it, understand that it is possible for this to happen. So let me just show you some things that are turning points. And to me, they're turning points towards an escalation in a hot civil war. Okay. I'm just going to say it that bluntly. And I'm going to be a little vague about it because I have ideas about how I think it's going to go. And I've talked about it on Substack. You can look at that if you're really interested in the specifics, but the specifics are not that important. What's important is you see that we're coming into this very precarious period here next year, next summer. And to me, these are the big turning point periods. Now, what I here is where, and this is an exact position here. So this is probably likely not to be, very likely what will happen is this is a period of time. So in astrology, things are usually depending on how all the other things, the universe has a timing, right? But the timing is, it's very rare for things to happen exactly on the date that you pick, because while I'm picking this date because the moon is translating the light between Uranus and Mars in its right center in this opposition, it's probably not going to happen on this exact date. It's probably going to happen somewhere in this summer, okay, as Uranus and Mars start to culminate into this conjunction. It could happen all the way back in June, because you see probably more likely to be late June looking at this, was Mars starts to conjunct the sun. This period from about mid-June until you get into mid-July is big deal, big turning point. But it's not as big of a deal as what you're going to see after this. So this is, to me, an inciting incident kind of situation. I'm just picking this one because it's the most stark here, okay? So you can see that we have the progressed Mars right here on the cusp of the seventh house. What is the seventh house? It's the public, it's the courts. And Pluto is in the 12th house, and it's getting close to being in its return, and it's definitely opposing. It's making and applying opposition to this progressed Mars. Okay, so that's something to keep in the back of your head, because that becomes even more important in the next turning point. Here's the thing. Okay, so the Neptune, I've talked a lot about the Neptune return of the Civil War. Okay, the Neptune return of the Civil War, the exact Neptune return, I'm going to go back to right now. I'll just pick, because I'm going to be putting this out probably tomorrow, but this is the date I'm doing it, right? So you can see Neptune is at 29 degrees. Now, this is the final. So let's get to the actual exact Neptune placement in the exact time frame here. So what we're talking about is this would be in the Civil War chart, the original Civil War chart, right? Where something happened, the battle happened and blah, blah, blah. It started the Civil War, right? So the exact placement was here. It was exactly at the last pass of 29 degrees Pisces. The next day, it went into Aries and never went back into Pisces. So this is literally the exact return in January of 2026. So that tells you things are building, right? It's also making it in conjunction to the progressive moon here. And we've got Mercury and Venus on the Pluto. Something is probably going to happen around here as well. There's something happening every fucking day. Excuse my language. It's constant. We have this constant crazy erratic thing, happening constantly every day. And I can tell you that looking at the economy, there's some kind of freak out, but probably will recover. It's going to just be more of this kind of very up and down, and the rich getting rich, the poor getting poorer. So this division is going to continue to grow and become much more extreme next year. And that's the way it's going to go. The difference here is that the Neptune return is with Saturn. So that didn't happen in the first Civil War. And that, in my opinion, is going to change the flavor of it. And it might be with Saturn next to it, as we've seen that whole stellium, which I was freaking out about last year, of all of those things around the North Node in Pisces. We've seen the unraveling of our institutions. We had Saturn and Neptune and the Node and a bunch of other planets around the North Node, lying, manipulation, criminal activity, and of course, just this complete unraveling of our institutions. So this is going to have a different flavor. So whatever this is, it's not going to be exactly how the first Civil War return was, because we have Saturn on it. It's a different flavor. So this is probably some kind of massive unraveling. In the second house, it might be related to jobs. Now remember, the other thing that happened when all of those planets were conjunct in Pisces, right as Trump became president, as he was sworn in, it literally was within the first week, was that crazy nodal conjunction with all the Pisces right around the node. The node was further right around here. We had the layoff of all these people, the Doge cuts, all this craziness, right? And the just basic taking a chainsaw to all of our institutions, to government employees, and a lot of people lost their jobs. So I'm assuming this is another iteration of that, especially because the second house, maybe the loss of money. It could be a lot of things, but we already saw that. So there's something else coming, another layer of deconstructing our institutions and our financial security. And very likely other things too, but that's been the general tenor of things. Now, remember that the next day, Neptune is going to go into Aries and stay in Aries permanently. I mean, in terms of this transit, right? So it's never going to retrograde back into Pisces. This means from this point forward, the energy goes from delusion, confusion, lying, misinformation, which that will still be with us as we move into this, because it's already the energy is already in bed. It's going to take a time before we get out of that energy, because it's very proliferated right now. Religiosity, the rise of the Christian national state, that's the Pisces as well. And now in Christofascism, whatever you want to call it, Neptune in Aries is going to be the increase in war. And people being angry, people being confused, maybe not even knowing what they're angry about, leaderlessness, just lost through war, lost through arguing and jockeying for power and position, competition among leaders to be the number one, the emperor of the world. Then we're going to see this really escalate next year, okay? Which we've already been seeing escalate. But this is not the main thing that I'm talking about here when we see Uranus go over. So let's look at this. So Uranus is going to be angular. It's going to hit the sun. So we're going to see things get more crazy. Then it's going to go over the fourth house cusp. And you're going to have this opposition with Mars. So Mars is the planet that rules fighting, that rules war. Okay. You have all of this on the homeland, the fourth house, opposing what is the 10th house. In the US Constitution signing chart, which I use that one now, people have there's a lot of astrologers out there on YouTube and other places that use what's called the Sibley chart. Now, I learned astrology back a long, long time ago. I was working as a psychic at this place. So I'm naturally clairvoyant, who is precognitive. I got my job not by using cards. I just didn't even know what I went into this interview with this company. I just started talking. Okay. So I didn't use any tools. I got a lot of my jobs that way. I don't have to use tools. I just know things. I see things. I learned how to use the tarot properly at that place because they had somebody teach us from the Brotherhood of Light. And as there were astrologers working at the same company, and frankly, I didn't think there was anything to astrology until I met this really wonderful psychic astrologer who looked at the ephemeris, asked my birthday, and asked me what happened to my father on my 10th, when I was 10 years old. Like, he died. So once he said that to me, and I realized, wow, there's something to this. If he could look at this book, ephemeris, know that something happened to my dad, that there's something here. So that's when I started studying astrology. So I was in my early 20s, and I sort of apprenticed with a bunch of the astrologers there who had been doing it for 20 years. Some of them not as long, but many of them had been doing it for years and years. And then they introduced me to this place in Los Angeles called the Carol Ryder Institute, which was set up by an astrologer who, had died already. So he was from, like, I think the 20s and 30s or something. He was a well-known astrologer, set up this institute to be able to teach people astrology. So what we had a group of astrologers who had been, like, they were all gray hairs, right, teaching people astrology. So you'd go and pay money. It was a nonprofit, so it wasn't a lot of money. And you would spend all night long learning all these astrological techniques. So I met literally probably hundreds of astrologers throughout this period of time and had many conversations about what the most pertinent chart was for determining what was going to happen in the US. I heard from every single one of those astrologers who I trusted, who were very excellent, technically extraordinarily proficient astrologers who did mundane astrology. They all had the opinion that the only legitimate chart was the US Constitution signing chart. Their argument was that, you know, the chart of July 4th, 1776, is when we went to war, when we declared our independence, but we had to go to war first. That was just our declaration that we wanted to be free. We didn't have a government. Now, we had a government that came after that was a mess that had to be replaced. And it wasn't until the US Constitution signing chart that we got the government that we have now. So using the July 4th chart is like using the inception date when you get pregnant. I mean, there may be some stuff in there and it's not totally invalid, but it's not that accurate. And it's not really what we became. It maybe has the seeds and germinating of ideas about our country, but it isn't the country that we really are. This is. This is why I use this chart, because I get questions about that from people who are newer to astrology. And this chart, I've looked at those other ones in my class because some of the people in my class were curious about that. And this chart is absolutely the most accurate. And the reason why other astrologers who don't know this, who are maybe newer, didn't study with people who were astrologers, maybe read books and put it together piece, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great way to learn astrology, who maybe learned on their own or took a class here or there and were not immersed in this institute with tons and tons of astrologers who were old and who had been through this whole thing before. They are using what normal, like I did that same mistake, okay? Everybody new to astrology who doesn't know does that mistake of using July 4th because that's the day we celebrate as our independence. So it's an easy mistake to make. But I got called out on that, and I was like lectured to by a bunch of astrologers, and they explained it to me, and we had this big debate, and they were right. So I'm just saying the reason why a lot of the astrologers, you may have seen things that people have said about how when Uranus is in Gemini, we always have a war on, here in the United States. That's because if you look at the fourth house cusp, we have had many wars. It's not always when Uranus is in Gemini. We had the War of 1812. It wasn't in Gemini then. We had World War I, and World War II. We had many wars, right? We had the Civil War, but the Civil War had Uranus going through the fourth. Anytime we've had an attack on this nation, or anytime we've had blood and people dying, here, trauma on the actual homeland, Uranus has been in the fourth house. Now, even in like the case of Pearl Harbor, Uranus was crossing the threshold. It was at late it was in late Taurus. It wasn't actually in Gemini yet, but it was in the fourth house. And again, we had an unexpected attack on our homeland, which started World War II for us. We finally got involved in it. And then, we lost a lot of people. So what I'm saying is the reason I'm saying this is because if you don't use this chart, you're not going to understand why that is. So I really compel people who are learning astrology and don't know this. I'm coming from a place where I know this works, and it's hard won. And I made the mistake 30 years ago when I was learning astrology because I didn't know. And this is coming from, these people are all past probably now, all these astrologers. They were old people who've been practicing astrology 30, 40 years, whatever, and they taught us younger people what was up. So here's the deal. The last time we had a Uranus-Mars conjunction with the moon there, during the Civil War, that was the beginning, the kickoff of the Civil War. So what do I think is going to happen next summer? There's some kind of violence. And I mean, we are already seeing violence, right? We're already seeing protesters being shot at and people being, all this crazy stuff. This is a whole other level. Now, this is some kind of really, really unexpected violence that kicks off, I think, the hot Civil War. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It can mean a lot of things. And I have speculations about what and how it's going to happen. And you'll hear more of them on my Substack. I'm not going to talk about it here because for a number of reasons, but I'm just going to say this is clearly turning point next summer. So be prepared for that. This is the beginning of things escalating to an entirely different level. So think of this as a turning point. Next summer is a turning point towards something that's going to be even bigger, building in 2 years from this point. This is the first turning point. Now look at 2 years from there. So I believe it is right around here. Yeah. So again, it's in the summer where you have, let's go back a little bit, where we have Mars again. So we have a bunch of planets all in Gemini opposing this moon with Uranus in the center of it. And we have Pluto moving over the ascendant, opposing Mars exactly. So what does this tell us? And you also got Neptune in trining the Mars, making a grand fire trine. People are angry at this point. This is going to be a paradigm shifting type of thing, okay? If the inciting incident is next summer, this is the culmination of it. This is, I think, when we're going to see real pushback in a way that most of us can't even imagine right now. So I will go more into detail about what I believe this is and what I think this is on my Substack. So please look at my Substack. But all I can tell you is we're in it during this period of time. This is really going to be a period where the present government regime will be under siege. I'll just put it that way. And this is really when the chaos that starts next summer culminates into a situation which threatens the government that is in office at this time. And when we will really feel like a real major change, the next escalation up from where 2026 brings us. So next year is a whole other level. It's a turning point, and this is another turning point. But this turning point is a turning point, I think, that's ultimately going to lead towards a new government. And I don't mean just regime change. I mean, I think this is ultimately going to lead us into a place where we have to rethink our institutions long term. Now, I don't know that people will be there just yet, but the kind of chaos and problems that we see coming into this period will be such that it will call into question probably the Constitution itself as Pluto returns, and we're going to have the Pluto return of the Constitution, which won't be then. It's going to be a few years later. But this will be a turning point into us thinking maybe we need to rethink our government itself. Maybe we need to. This is why you saw me talking to Project 2026 guy, and where I've been saying for a while, we need to focus on what we want our new government to look like, because this is going to be a crisis period that will last for a long time. This Pluto-Mars opposition on the angles is the power of the people fighting those who are the people who are in positions of privilege. And this period, which will probably be pushed by the income insecurity and the financial problems of the nation, the extreme wealth divide between the poor and the rich. These will be drivers along with a lot of other things. And I would say this is definitely a revolution of some kind. How it will manifest, we'll see. But this will lead to a rethinking of the Constitution itself and our system of government, which we may decide has to be changed. And we won't be changing it then. We'll be fighting over what it is. But ultimately, that is where it leads. Because as you look forward, and I don't want to go too ahead of everybody because it's kind of overwhelming. But by 2032, you've got this Pluto return. So what I'm telling you here is that we have a long way to go, and that we're in the throes of the most difficult period coming up in the next couple of years, where we're going to have to rethink our institutions on a much deeper level than we've ever thought about it. So start thinking about that now, because if you're going to stay in the US, what do you want to see for the country? I mean, it has the potential of actually maybe us joining the rest of the world with a social democracy, a democratic socialist sort of democracy. We're going to have to do something anyway, because AI is coming and people's incomes and jobs are probably going to be no longer. So there's a lot going on here, and positive side of this, even though we're going to have a lot of fighting going on, is that we have the potential to make this country better, more fair, stronger, and more able to reflect the will of the people, and wrench it away from all these special interests and wealthy people, this plutocracy. And notice that as Pluto has been in the 12th house and it gone into Aquarius, the power of the people has been hidden and it's moving over into the first house. And people are going to start to embrace their power and see what we have now is a lot of confusion about what to do. But once Pluto moves into the first house, there will be no confusion. People will be sure and they will start taking their power. Now it will go back and forth for that year. And there'll be some people, but we will ultimately have Pluto stationed in the first house and people will understand their role and their power in the circumstance. And we're going to learn that lesson over the next few years. So I'm trying to be positive here and that there is something good that can come out of this. If we think about it now, and are preparing ourselves for this big change, and what we should start having conversations with each other about what is the best version of America that we can have. It's inclusive of everyone, that is truly representational, that takes care of everyone's needs, and that really has a structure in which if we have something resembling what we have now, where someone's abusing their power and taking advantage of things, how do we remove somebody like that immediately? The parliamentary system may be in order. We might have to go to some kind of parliamentary type, combination with our democracy, certainly rewriting a lot of, taking the electoral college out and other things. But a parliamentary style government, if you have a really bad prime minister, can be instantly changed. And so it keeps everyone in the government on their toes to some degree. I'm not saying it's a perfect system either, but maybe we can learn something from our democratic partners in Europe, what we've gone through here, and get people who are truly knowledgeable about history and intellectuals and regular people and, to come together and think this through, like we did the last time when we developed the country. This is a reboot. It's what we're going to come into is a reboot of the America that we have been in, America 2.0. And America 2.0 can be whatever we choose it to be. So think about that. I think America 2.0 could be incredibly better than America 1.0. And it may be over time as the sun moves into Gemini, into the fourth house, it may be decided that there's, a twin situation, two different types of America. And it could be that the country itself gets broken in two, maybe rethought in a totally different way. We'll have to see. This is kind of far away, but I know there's not going to be like red states and blue states, but potentially maybe there'll be city states and, there'll be, rural areas that have a different type of governance, or a different type of participation, or who knows, like it could be a lot of different possibilities. But to solve our problems, we're going to have to think about them. So I urge you to think about these things and participate in the dialogue so that it can be a better country on the other side of this. Right now, we're in the period that's very difficult and it's going to get more difficult. So prepare yourself for that. But the opportunity for it to become a much better nation is before us. And try to focus on that, because, that is the good thing that's going to come out of it. That's part of why this is happening. It needs to happen. Things have gotten way too out of control, way too corrupted. And in order for this country to find a new path forward. We're going to have to rethink it. I don't think America will ever be the same after this period. And that could be a good thing because there's plenty of things wrong. Racism, misogyny, this whole crazy Christian right, theocracy and the technocrats and all these billionaires and people who want to oppress others. So just think about it. All right. Blessings to all of you. Subscribe to my Substack, please. You'll get much better information there. A lot of detailed information. So go ahead and do that. And thank you for subscribing. And if you can, let other people know about all this, because the more people that are aware of what's coming, the better we can be prepared and the better outcome we'll have on the other side of this. All right. Blessings to all of you. Have a wonderful week and take care.